So I'll be the acting chair tonight. I'm usually vice chair. So we welcome you, and we're glad to see everyone. And I'd like to start out by recognizing a few people. I have not had the privilege of meeting Miss Sherry Ferguson, but I am told that Miss Sherry Ferguson started the Tea Party here in Marshall County and made a tremendous difference. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm glad I hope to actually meet you in person. And then because I do get nervous in front of so many wonderful people, you're an intimidating group, you're a great group of people. I'm not going to call on people by name because I might miss someone. But if all of our elected officials could just stand up and say, who are here tonight, I want to give you the opportunity to stand up and say your name and the office so that people can know you.
I'm Craig Blackwell. I'm County Commissioner of the 1st District, which is on the north end. Good crowd. Glad to see each and every one of you out. Go Trump.
County Commissioner for the 8th District, and I'm really happy to see all of you. I'm County Trustee.
And I know that we have a special guest this evening who's running for office, and he'll speak to us in a moment. But anyone that is not a speaker tonight who is running for office in our GOP, or I guess some of them are not GOP primary, but the for office in our local elections, if you'd like to stand up and introduce yourself and say for what office you're running. Who do we have? I know we have someone running for school board. Oh, yes. We have someone running for school board.
My name is Erin Jones, and I am running for school board of District 8. So if anybody would like, if you're in our district, I appreciate your vote.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Lesko Peter. Last name used to be Smart. I'm running for Ward 1 City Councilman, and I appreciate your vote. God bless America.
And do we have anyone else running for office locally or in the GOP primaries? Okay. All right.
I am. Sorry. She was hitting me, but if you weren't here last month, I'm running for the 92nd District state rep. I'd appreciate all your votes. Vince Equators again.
I didn't know what he had in mind. All right. Well, it's good to see everyone. Let's start off the evening right. Our chaplain, Scotty, will you please lead us in prayer?
Let's bow our heads, folks. Dear Lord, Father in heaven, we just ask you to bless us with the people here tonight. Lord, each and every one come from different areas of this county and different parts further. Lord, just ask you to bless each and every one on the way home tonight. Just thankful for them being here, Lord. Bless our county, our state, and our country, Lord. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen. And will you please lead us in our pledge? We have our flag pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, a lot has happened in the last month since we met. And we had, did you all watch the State of the Union? Did anybody at least clips? Wasn't that amazing? And it was just several years ago in other administrations, you would have one or two hot topics. Right now, so much has happened, we couldn't say, oh, can you believe these two big events? No, it's Trump speak now, isn't it? But for the State of the Union, obviously we watched that. And early voting has begun for the presidential primary election. So I don't know if everyone's had a chance to vote early. I see I voted. Stickers, all right. And very good, all right, that's exciting. So this is our first chance to vote for President Trump this year, or whoever in the presidential primary. And early voting has begun until next Tuesday, and it's also this Saturday, 8 to noon. So early voting has begun, and then of course the election March 3rd. So that's exciting. All right, Ms. Emily, do you have our minutes?
Marshall County Republican Party met January 21st, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. in Marshall County Library. Meeting was called to order by Gill, Vice Chairwoman. Pledge was led by Vince Equators. Scotty Courts led the prayer. Scholarship Township Committee to meet after the regular meeting tonight. Speakers were Lynn Davis, Bill Representative or Scott Desjardins, and State Executive Committee member. Jim Sandman, State Executive Committee. Mary Tackett, Lincoln County Chairwoman. Rick Tillis gave an update of the legislature. Each week, we have spoken with us, we have developed Dr. Manny Setti, GOP candidate for U.S. Senate. Vince Cuevas spoke regarding making Marshall County a second amendment sanctuary. He is now running in the GOP primary for state representative. Janet Kessel gave an update on the Republican dinner to be held April 23rd at the Recreation Center in Lewisburg. Tickets will be $50. Meet and greet at 5:30 and dinner at 6:30. Julie Kwan announced speakers for the coming month. Julie Kwan adjourned the meeting.
All right. The minutes have been read to you. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes as read? If there are no corrections or additions, do we have a motion to accept and approve the minutes? A motion? Are there seconded?
Who seconded it?
Me.
Oh, okay. Hi.
It's been 25 years and that's my husband, hi, for those who, his name is Hi, and I still say hi, and think it's funny. That's 25 years I've been doing that. Okay, are there any objections to the minutes? The minutes are approved. All right. And for Vince, would you please update us on the scholarship as well as the membership drive? And if you'd like to mention an update on the Second Amendment, so if you want to wear a couple hats there.
Okay.
So scholarship.
So the scholarships were all submitted to all of the school counselors this week and last week. They're scheduled to be delivered and returned by April 7th at noon to the counselor or to our mailbox, which is on the scholarship application. And I don't have one in front of me, so I couldn't tell you the question. Do you have one?
Just none. No.
We did revise the question a little bit to make it a little bit easier to understand, and the committee approved it. As far as the membership drive, we're still doing the membership drive. We also have tickets for the dinner, which is April 23rd. We have Trump stickers, bumper stickers, and Trump hats. If you do join, each month your name will go into a drawing for a hat at the meeting, and that's our current drawing. What else was it? Oh, the Second
put on your
Amendment
different hat as the county
Yeah.
commissioner. So talk about our Second Amendment.
So it was approved at the committee level, like I stated last month. After a discussion with the attorney and the mayor, it's been approved to go to the commission. That meeting is going to be held next Monday, February 24th. And that's at 6 p.m. in the second floor, the commission room of the courthouse annex. Anybody that can be there to support this would be great. I did have a letter that was submitted to me and the county commissioners. I need to read on. All right, okay, this is submitted by Ken and Connie Tyson. They're right here. They own Ken's Guns and More here in Lewisburg. This was submitted to all the commissioners and to the mayor. For those who don't know us, we are Kenny, Con, and Tyson. Together we own and operate a small business in Lewisburg, Ken's Guns and More, and reside in Lewisburg. Both of us have proudly served our nation in the U.S. Air Force. Ken is a retired senior master sergeant, and Connie has also served honorably for 4 years. Over the years, we have traveled throughout the state of Tennessee conducting business at gun shows, stretching from Memphis to Bristol, Clarksville to Chattanooga, and a dozen cities in between. What we have gathered and learned during our travels is we feel our country, Marshall County, and Marshall County, is, if not, one of the most gun-free counties in the state, and others were not too far behind. As operators of Ken's Guns, we believe no one has a better finger on the pulse in terms of how the people of Marshall County feel about firearms, firearm issues, along with their feelings towards the right to protect themselves and their family as we do. At our store, we talk to many customers, along with many other residents who are not customers, just friends. Just like we are sure you talk to and exchange ideas with your voters within the areas. While interacting with our customers, we have a better understanding of what they want and expect from us. We do not just limit our outreach to close customers and our like-minded individuals, which sometimes we feel some public servants have a slight tendency to do, which results in never really getting a fair sample on current issues. We don't consider Kenneth Guns and More our store. We work for the customer. It is our gun shop store. It is their gun shop store, excuse me. We just operate it. Just like Marshall County is the people's county, and we are sure you run to make decisions based on what the majority of your constituents want. If we decide to go against the majority of our customers, we can only expect them to stop supporting our establishment. It only makes sense if you are, or any other elected officials, for that matter, went against issues a majority of your constituents want, you all too would risk losing support. We are currently unaware how each of the commissioners are going to vote on this matter, a matter which boils down to what is basically a symbolic resolution, nothing more than a feel-good thing, which is understood by all of us, not a legal binding document. With that said, all we and residents like is to send an honest sampling and clear message to our state representatives and governor where the majority of the constituents from Marshall County stand when it comes to the Second Amendment. As residents of Marshall County, it would be no less than an absolute total embarrassment for us if we were just one of a handful of counties within the state that did not support this matter. Mind you, the same matter already passed by a good portion of the counties in the great state of Tennessee. In closing, we ask you, the commissioners, set your political biases and personal opinions, which is all you know, should never be a factor in a county decision, aside when it comes to the Second Amendment. We would like you to highly consider voting for this resolution. We have faith you will all do the right thing. Thank you for your opportunity to share our thoughts. Thank you again, Ken and Connie Tyson. Thank you, Ken. At 6 p.m., it's going to be at the County Commission office on the second floor of the courthouse.
And any events any of us can attend and show support.
There won't be a time to speak. I did ask for that. If you would like to speak, send me your name and I can submit it, but there won't be any citizen input. So if you'd like to also send your thoughts, get with me and I'll give you the contacts for the commissioners and the mayor.
Posters?
What's that?
Posters?
Posters? I guess you could hold it up.
That's right. I like that. And the scholarship, for those who are visiting or are not familiar with our scholarship, this is our second year. We're able to offer 3 scholarships here in Marshall County, 1 for each high school district. Therefore, anyone who lives in the district, whether they go to that public school or they homeschool or they are private school students, as long as they are a resident within that high school district. So there's three groups. They can get their applications from the school counselors. They are all in the schools, and they are available on our Facebook Facebook page. And the money is unattached, which means they can use it for supplies, books, whatever they need. And the application and essay information is on the application. All right, and Ms. Jeanette, do you have anything you'd like to share about our annual dinner, which is April
23rd. It's on a Thursday night, as always, and I have lots to share. Lots.
Yes, ma'am.
But anyway, our annual dinner is April the 23rd at the Lewisburg Rec Center for a phenomenal sit-down dinner. Tickets are available at $50 a person, and the max we can hold is 300, and we'll come close to that. All the candidates for the state and federal level have been invited to speak at the dinner, and usually have a good response. The tables go for $500, and the tickets on an individual basis are $50. I do have tickets available, just picked them up and started selling tonight. Also, in addition to that, it's meet and greet from 5 o'clock to 6:30. And then the dinner will be starting at 6:30. We'll also do a straw poll and help the candidates to understand whether they need to reach out a little bit more before the election, or if they feel real comfortable. And so we'll do that, and we'll also be hearing from the girls and boys that win the scholarships, so that we can hear what they had to say. And that went over real well last year as well. So I hope you all come and buy your tickets. Several of us will be selling. I'm just trying to distribute some tonight. In addition to that, I'm also selling hats. They go in for $15 $15 per. So we're selling those. That all money goes back into our little funds to help us with selling, with having the dinners and so forth, and helping the candidates. Also, if you join, which is a $10 fee per year per person, if you join, we'll put your name in the hat, or in this, I'll put it in a hat later. And we'll take a drawing, and that person will win one of the hats, the hat of their choice.
That's right.
So you get your membership. Once you win, we take your name out of here. If you don't win, we keep your name in, and so you have a chance each and every month. So the sooner you sign up for your membership, the more opportunities you have to win a hat. Also, we have bumper stickers that are $2 a piece. So the Trump ones. So if you would like one of those, $2. And what else do I have here?
She's got her own shop set.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of what else I have here. Okay.
For songbook.
Pardon? Go. What were you saying there? Huh?
I thought it said a Bill Gates. Looking
Yeah,
for a songbook.
So anyway, any questions on the dinner? Any questions on anything?
Janet, I have a question. I put in
Okay.
the minutes, 5:30
Yes,
for the meeting.
five. Yes, ma'am. So anyway, come by, the tickets from me afterwards, join if you haven't already, and we've already had 4 people join tonight. So, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Janet. A couple of odds and ends of unfinished business. I told you that I would talk about the coalition. There's a coalition of counties that has developed, and what that is, it's ongoing and it's new and it's not thoroughly defined. Because I spoke with the founders, I said, I don't understand this. They said that's because it's not perfectly defined. I said, okay, and that's why it's big to me. So it's a group of counties that are smaller, we get together, so we have a bigger voice, like a Williamson County, like a Hamilton County, like a Knox County. And so that way we get the meetings with Scott Golden or other, state elected officials and voice our opinion for our counties. We don't have anything right now, but we've had several issues come up and they were able to get the meetings. Before I sign the name, though, I will bring back whatever the resolution is. I'll continue to meet and be part of that group. But before I sign my name, I'm not signing my name as Julie as vice chair. So I'm signing your all's name. So I'll bring those resolutions back, and then we can talk at that point. Do I sign us? Which way are we voting on those various resolutions? And things such as the heartbeat bill last summer. So things that are very dear to most of our hearts. The communications. Let's see. Watch for us. We're in Marshall County newspaper, but we will also be going to our regional newspapers in the exchange starting next month. A total of 7 papers. So even if you're on the outskirts, you'll be reading other papers. You'll see it. Another piece of old business: campaign headquarters for our party for this coming summer and fall. Does anyone have any suggestions or leads? And if you do, please contact us. We are still on the lookout. Okay, so we're still looking. Everyone keep your eyes open. And there's lots of volunteer opportunities coming up as we get into the campaign season. So be ready for that. We'll be having outreach booths at different events in the county. Cornersville is just like we had at Goats Music and More, but more this year because it's an election year. All right, and if there's no other new business, then I would like to introduce, we have 2 speakers this evening. Dr. Josh Gapp is running in our GOP primary for U.S. Senate. Hi and I first met Josh and Angie when Josh and my husband were attending grad school for the executive MBAs at Vanderbilt. But we never really talked politics, at least that I remember. And we were surprised we received an email as part of his classmates telling us about his campaign. Just like with all the GOP candidates, I reached out and offered him time to come speak to us on our GOP calendar here in Marshall County. So I'm happy to introduce a GOP candidate for our Tennessee U.S. Senate seat, and I'm excited to learn along with the rest of you about his vision and where he stands on the issues.
Hey, got a question for us, Josh.
Yes, sir.
How many congressmen, U.S. congressmen do we have? How many districts in Tennessee?
As far, I think we've got 11, or is it, so we've got 11 electoral votes and 9 districts.
Ma'am?
9 Congress,
9.
2 senators.
Yes.
How many Republicans? or liberal, conservative?
I think we've got two Democrats, so seven. 7 of our congressmen are Republicans.
Okay.
There's one
We're
in
pretty good shape,
Nashville and one in Memphis. Cohen and Hoover. So I'm getting a quiz tonight. Did y'all see that?
Cohen.
Well, Josh, I look forward to hearing about it.
Maybe give it chicken mania.
Let's give it to
Hello, everybody.
Arkansas. Be
Hi, so first of all, Julie lied to me. She said it was going to be a small crowd. I'm glad to see so many people came out tonight. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Julie, for the kind introduction, and thank you, Marshall County, for having me out here. My name is Josh Gapp, and I am running for the United States Senate here in the great state of Tennessee. As Julie was saying, I've had the privilege of knowing Julie and Ty and William for 8.5, 9 years. Math camp was about this time 9 years ago, so for a long time, and I've been blessed to know them. So, in my day job, I'm a pathologist, and a pathologist is a doctor who's trained to spot cancer. And I can tell you, as a doctor who's trained to spot cancer, that political correctness has become a cancer in our system. Let me see a quick show of hands. How many of you thought that it was a national disgrace when right before Independence Day, Nike decided to pull their Betsy Ross white shoes from American shelves for the crime of having the original American flag on it?
I don't know what we're voting.
Frankly, that's when I'd had enough. There's a lot of things, but that's kind of when I'd had enough, and I decided to do something about it. And so, I'm here running for the United States Senate today. I believe that political correctness is the greatest threat that we face, or the greatest threat to our God-given unalienable rights. It is the reason that we have an illegal immigration problem in the first place. You can't even talk about fixing the problem without being called a racist or xenophobe at best. We need to help Trump finish building the wall and forget about amnesty. If you want legal status, you need to leave the country and come back and get in line just like everybody else. Let me do another quick poll, last one I promise. How many of you, by show of hands, believe that we should not infringe on our Second Amendment rights because of some gun control activist lobbying? Yeah. Yet, every time that somebody breaks the law, the PC crowd wants to take away the rights of law-abiding Americans. They spend some PC catchphrase like common sense gun control. The Constitution is clear. Shall not be infringed. That language is unique. Nowhere else in the founding documents anywhere do you see shall not be infringed. It's not about hunting. It's about preventing the government from taking away your rights. I will fight red flag laws and any other infringements on the Second Amendment, and I support the Second Amendment sanctuary movement. Yeah, I totally support that here in Tennessee. I think it's a great idea. In fact, I wish we could put some teeth to it, not just symbolism to it. Religious liberty. The radical PC crowd wants to take away the tax-exempt status of our churches for the crime, and shut down our churches for the crime of believing in biblical marriage. I will defend our churches, and I will protect our business owners and our citizens who are trying to live out their faith, even if their faith isn't considered politically correct by some. Pro-life. Political correctness is the greatest obstacle to protecting our unborn children. As a Christian, as a father of 4, and as a physician who's held an 18-week-old baby in my hands, it's clear that life begins at conception, period. But if you believe as I do, that the unborn should have constitutional rights, you're labeled as a sexist. This is the greatest human rights issue that we face today. And I will firmly support the pro-life agenda in Washington. And I have faith that together we will solve this problem in the years to come. Healthcare. So this is an issue that's obviously near and dear to my heart, but political correctness is the reason that our healthcare system is broken. And this all began way back in the 90s, but the PC crowd has been pushing the fallacy that healthcare is a right since Hillary Clinton's attempted socialization of healthcare in the early 90s. They lost that battle, but the PC crowd won the war ever since with increasing regulations and the eventual takeover of medicine with Obamacare, and they're trying to push for more. The Affordable Care Act is a lie. It's not affordable, and you haven't been able to keep your doctor. As a healer, I want to make sure that my patients have the broadest access to the best and most affordable care. But putting the government between the doctor and the patient is not the solution. It's just not. When in Washington, I will work to repeal Obamacare, and I will replace it with a comprehensive policy reform, starting with a simple change to tax policy. Allowing healthcare providers to write off care to patients who are underprivileged and can't afford the care. That's the first step. Second, declaw the regulatory power of the unelected bureaucrats in Medicare. Third, allow insurance companies to operate across state lines. And fourth, reduce the artificial barriers to entry that the government has put into the insurance industry to allow for more competition, more innovation in the insurance markets. Bottom line is we need less government, not more in medicine. Today, political correctness is providing cover to probably the greatest threat that we face, the failed ideas of Karl Marx. As a kid growing up, Ronald Reagan was my hero. Words can't even express, I love President Reagan. The hope and optimism that permeated Reagan still inspires me to this day. Even in times of tragedy, like the Challenger disaster, I was overwhelmed with sadness, and I remember finding comfort when he spoke to the nation that night and described how our brave astronauts had slipped the surly bonds and touched the face of God. But Reagan truly became my hero by defeating communist Russia. For those in the audience who are old enough to remember, you know. For those who are too young to remember the 80s, it's really hard to describe, probably impossible, the constant state of fear that we were in as the bomb was coming. Exactly. We were so sure that an attack was coming that we were taught duck and cover. And it's hard to even say it now as an adult without chuckling a little bit, but we had duck and cover drills in school, just like fire drills. And the teacher, she'd bring her bell and she'd say, the air raid is going off, what do you do, children? And we'd all say duck and cover, and we'd jump under our desks, and we'd put our head between our legs, and put our hands over our head, and somehow that was supposed to make us feel better. And it did, I guess, when I was a kid. But President Reagan, time and time again, stood up to communist Russia. Never wavered. We are the good guys. They were evil. And they were evil. And then one day, on the world stage, with everybody watching, President Reagan told Mr. Gorbachev to tear down that wall. And you know what? He tore down the wall. They took down the wall. It was just incredible. I still get goosebumps to this day. The Berlin Wall fell to pickaxes and shovels from an oppressed population. And then soon thereafter, the Soviet Union fell after that. And we thought that we'd won. The Cold War was over. We thought communism was defeated. The world was liberated. We were safe, and we were free. And as most people at that time, we thought that communism was on its last legs, about to be relegated, to the annals of history. Forever, to the brutal tragedy of human folly. But communism is back. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. I'm sure you have. But communism is making a comeback. And it's not some theoretical threat from across the ocean now. It's the Democratic Party, across the aisle. The Dems, they're on the verge of nominating a democratic socialist to be president. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing. It's communism. And together, we will stop the oppressive forces of Marxism from ruining our system by fighting back with the right line of liberty and free market capitalism. Some final thoughts. Our founders dared to envision a country where the people were free from tyranny. You can read any of the founding documents, whether it's the Federalist Papers, Madison, Jefferson, Washington's Diaries, the Constitution, the Declaration, it doesn't matter. It slaps you in the face clear that more than anything, they were afraid of tyranny. And in their day, tyranny took the form of a king or an emperor. Today, it's a large bureaucratic state that takes up greater than 20% of our time. But more worrisome, true tyranny starts with thought control or group control. First, they attack your freedom of speech. Second, they take away your ability to defend yourself. And third, they take away your right to assemble. And that's their agenda. That's what they're trying to do right now. The radical socialists, let's call them what they are, the communists, they've taken this beautiful, wonderful diversity that we have in this country, and and the most diverse country that's ever existed in the history of the world. And they've weaponized it, they've turned it against us. You know, they've put us all into these little intersectional boxes, you know, identity politics. And under the guise of political correctness, if you disagree with what they say, it's because you're a racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobe, whatever. So much so that these terms have now lost all meaning. I mean, when Nancy Pelosi can be called a racist, who's not? You know? And I'm not defending Nancy Pelosi. You know, but anyway, political correctness is thought control. And it is a cancer that's destroying our society. You know, in the office, they call me Dr. Dad. I'm not just some doctor. I'm Josh. Right? If you call me doctor, I probably won't respond to you. But, you know, I grew up in a trailer court with hot dogs and tater tots 2 out of 3 meals a day. My parents taught me, though, by example, that with hard work and perseverance, anyone in this country can improve their station in life. I earned my first paycheck when I was in junior high. I worked my way through college delivering pizzas. I'm a busy father of 4. I'm a loving husband. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. You know, I took up my first business loan when I was in high school. I bought gumball machines. I hired my first employee when I was 21. I painted houses in the summer between college semesters. And I've been making payroll ever since. Over the years, my wife and I, Angie, we've hired hundreds of people. I know a thing or two about creating jobs. I'm a proud patriot. And I am skeptical of career politicians and those who have acquired their positions through family name or generational wealth. I think leadership is earned. And I think the people that we send to Washington should earn the right to run. You know, political correctness is cancer. I volunteer to be your champion, to fight for your rights and protect your liberties from the cancer of political correctness. And that's all I got for you guys. You know, please go to our website, joshgap.com. You know, make a donation, sign up to volunteer, and I humbly ask for your vote on August 6th. Thank you. God bless.
We never got into this kind of conversation back in the day. We haven't seen each other since graduation was at 2012. Yeah. So this is good. This is good. Does anyone have a couple questions before Mr. Gill speaks? Before Josh?
I do, always.
Yes, ma'am.
I have lots of hot buttons. But one thing I want to know, and it's relative to the Second Amendment, and I mean, there is no doubt that there's something very wrong, you know, that people take whatever kind of weapon into a Walmart and start shooting and everything. And knowing some of the stories from way back when, I'm a firm believer that these are people who have mental issues, and I personally believe that a tremendous amount of it is due to marijuana and drugs. Now, when my son was in high school, the marijuana back then was bad enough, but now it's way more powerful with the THC that's in there and the Surgeon General, and you know, they had this big news conference over that. So, and all the left want to do now, you know, they want to legalize everything, right? And they want to legalize marijuana, they want to legalize this, and this, and the reason being is because they want everybody stoned so we don't have sense enough to fight for it. And I mean, and this guy has written a book. He is a Wall Street, New York Times reporter, and his wife is a clinical psychologist. And they got into this discussion one night, and she said, well, you know that these things that happen is because these kids are schizophrenic. You know why these shootings are happening? Because they're schizophrenic. And he said, no. And she said, yeah, I treat them. It goes back to the marijuana. And you need to get his book. I think it's Parents Tell Your Children. And he, not a person on the right at all, you know, he was a leftist. So he went all over the country gathering research, and he's put his research into this book. So my question for you is, when you get up there I mean, granted, something needs to be done, it needs to be addressed, and everybody keeps kicking the can down the road, but the big deal is now red flag, red flag. I think red flag is very dangerous, because, I mean, just look what happened to our president, you know, who decides? You know, they're gonna come to my door, and they're gonna decide that, okay, you're old and you don't have good sense, so, you know, you can't have a gun. So who makes that distinction? So whoever we elect to go to the Senate or wherever, and is, gonna have to stand strong for something. I mean, it's a lion's den up there. Are you ready to go up there and address that and address the rhinos? The place is filled with people that need to be, that wear a Republican label that need to be wearing a Democrat hat, okay? So, number one, are you gonna be ready to face them? And number two, I wanna know where you stand on this, drug issue and all this legalization of all these drugs. And I wanna know what kind of an advocate you're gonna be as far as addressing mental health as the issue and what's behind these kids going into these places and shooting everybody up. So I wanna know where you stand on all that.
So I totally agree with you about mental health. You know, when I was growing up, there were mental health facilities. I mean, we called them, you know, the mental health hospitals, and this is like political correctness all over again. You know, they were deemed to be politically incorrect to have, you know, patients held in these places, and so they shut these places down, and now the patients are out on the street, not getting the help. And so I think I think that mental health is a huge issue. I think a lot of the violence problems that you have, not just gun violence, but violence in general, is largely a mental health issue, and it's something that we should do. When it comes to government and what the roles of government are and what government should do, I'm a small government conservative Republican. I think that the government has very few functions that it needs to do. You know, it's there to protect our borders, it's there to enforce contracts, it's there to, you know, enforce property rights. Beyond that, anytime you ask the government to do something, it comes at a cost, and that cost is liberty, it's life and limb and liberty, and personal wealth. And the government will throw you in jail, they'll put you to death, they'll send the military after you if you don't do what they say. And so anytime you ask the government to do something, you need to make sure that the cost of that thing that you're asking it to do is made up for in the benefit that you receive as, you know, as a citizen. In most cases, it's not. Not in all cases, but in most cases it's not. So my general view when I'm tackling any sort of issue is I'm gonna look at that level. I'm gonna say, is this something that I think I should be able to put a gun, you know, against Mr. Jones's head and force him to do this or that thing, or to pay me this or that stuff? And if I think it's not, then I won't do it. So when it comes to you know, the mental health, we talked about that, but when it comes to the drug issue, that's a tough issue. You know, as a small government person, I don't think the government should be telling people what to do. I don't like the government telling people what to do. I don't like the government telling me what to do. I don't like it telling you what to do. I don't think it's there to live your life for you. That's your life to live, as long as you are accountable for your life and you don't ask anybody else to pay for it. As a doctor, I've seen just the tragedy that addiction causes people, and it's not just the person who's addicted; it's their whole family, it's their extended family. And I have family members, you know, who have suffered from this, and so it's a tough issue. I think the first thing that we need to do when it comes to drugs is anything that's illegal now, we need to make sure that it's not crossing our borders, you know, that our borders are secure. We're not getting heroin and opioids across, you know, the Mexican border. We're not getting anything from China. You know, we need to shut that down. We need to empower the local police to be able to, and EMS and everything else, to enforce the laws that are there. And I think a lot of those issues are probably local issues as well. You know, it's not for the federal government to dictate on high to the entire country, you know, how they want to live. If the wackos out in California want to live like wackos out in California, we'll let them. Here in Tennessee, we'll do what we think is best for Tennessee. So that's my general, that's my answer for you. Does that answer kind of what you're asking?
Well, kind of, sort of. So it should be up to each state, and I get that, and I agree with that. But are you willing to fight for that in Washington, because they want to make it a federal issue and tell everybody what to do? So are you willing to fight for?
I'm not going to Washington to fade into the black. I'm not going into Washington to hide behind the scenes. My life right now before running was a pretty decent life. We were doing okay. I didn't embark on this journey to go up there and be a mouse. I'm gonna go up there, I'm gonna fight for what I believe, I'm gonna fight for what we believe. And anybody who's known me for any length of time knows that I'm pretty hard-headed. I don't get told no very easily. The things that my wife and I have accomplished in our lives, we accomplish because that's who we are, and that's who I am. And that's not when I get up there, I will fight for you. And I will be a thorn in their side, I will have a big stick, and I will use it.
There's one more question, and maybe the second question.
I just wanted to comment.
Oh, yes.
What I'm hearing her say is, can you be bothered?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and that's my wife, I can't.
Well, so many of them can be bothered, but they got up there, they promised everything, but when they get there, it's different.
So,
It's money, and they buy them, they buy them out.
This is a unique race, and y'all have you have some options available to you, and I'm not gonna get into any of the stuff. You all already know as well as I do what the options are. When I win this race, I will win it because I've earned it. And when you earn it, and it's not given to you, well, you've got a lot of power.
Yeah.
And you can't be bought. That's why Trump is able to do what Trump is doing.
That's right. You're right.
We have one more question, and then we're going to hear from Mr. Gill. Yes, sir.
As a doctor, I know how you feel. I want you to tell the crowd here the most important vote that you probably will have to make, and that's the Supreme Court.
And the question,
What's your question? What's my question?
Yeah.
When Trump sends that lady down there that's got 7 children to be a Supreme Court, are you going to vote for her?
So where do you stand on judges and confirming them? Conservative?
No, I mean strict constitutional judges. There's not a whole lot of room for interpretation in the Constitution. That's a slippery slope. That it's a way to legislate people. It's a way to bypass what the founders set up through the courts, and it's just I'm a constitutionalist.
Thank you, Josh. I'm glad you're here tonight. We'll be here after we adjourn if you want to ask him some additional questions. And Mr. Gill, if you'd like to come on up. This is Steve Gill. Steve is the CEO of Gill Media, a Nashville-based public affairs media and marketing company. Gill Media counsels U.S. and global companies, individuals, organizations on development and implementation of marketing, media, and grassroots orientation communication strategies. So maybe he can tell me what to do on our Facebook, right? He does it all. I'm trying to just read it all. Additionally, Mr. Gill is an attorney and a former analyst for WKRN Channel 2, and has appeared as a political commentator on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, RT America, and the BBC, as well as other media in the U.S. and abroad. He played for UT basketball in the late 70s for sports fans. And this is just a little bit of his background and accomplishments. Most of all, he is well informed on our issues right now in this state as well as nationally. And he's here to speak, and he's an enjoyable speaker. Steve, if you'll come and share with us, and we look forward to hearing from you on our important issues.
You got iron blood, you ought to be pretty good.
Those are scratching your head going, I don't remember him playing at UT for basketball. If I will sit down, you will recognize me immediately. I was there during the Ernie and Bernie show. So they never called it the Ernie, Bernie, and Steve show. I couldn't even get my mom to call it the Ernie, Bernie, and Steve show. It is great to be in Marshall County. The first political event I went to when I ran for Congress in '94 against Bart Gordon, you'll remember him, was the Marshall County Reagan Day dinner. And we ended up getting beat by 800 votes out of 180,000 by Bart. And Marshall County's Republican Party has grown enough that if y'all had been the size you are now, we'd have carried it with just the extra 800 votes here. And that wouldn't even beat any dead people. We would have been good all the time. I couldn't help but think when you were talking about the drug issue, as a young kid, my dad was an Air Force fighter pilot. We lived all over the country. And I remember as a young kid, I thought I had a drug problem because my mom and dad drugged me to church every Sunday. And if we had more of that kind of drugging, we'd have a lot less of the drugging that's causing problems in our And then Ken, I got to come back down here for Ken's Guns and More. I mean, I don't know what more you need other than guns, but optics, ammo, holsters. We were moving recently, and one of my sons said, "Dad, how many guns do you have?" And I said, "Well, this is just some of them. Not as many as I want, maybe more than I need, somewhere in that between gray hair." You'll appreciate it in particular. My dad, like I said, was an Air Force fighter pilot, and we, after Obama got elected, I get a call from my dad saying, "Steve, are you still friends with that Ronnie Barrett guy that has a Barrett 50 caliber rifle?" And I said, yeah, I know Ronnie. He goes, "I want to get me one of those." And I said, "Dad, why do you need a 50 caliber rifle?" He goes, "Because they don't make a 60. I thought it was the best answer possible. Again, because we were in the military, I went to 10 different schools before I got out of high school, from Anchorage to Miami. I'll never forget my first theological debate and struggle was at 6 years old in Anchorage, Alaska, at Elmendorf Air Force Base, trying to figure out how we were going to a Southern Baptist church and how much further we'd have to be north before we'd be Northern Baptist. I come from a very strange perspective of things, and I'm happy to be back here. I got to tell you, I was telling some of the guys back here that I used to come down here when I was running for Congress, and after we could have had a Republican meeting at the drive-thru at Wendy's, and there'd be an empty seat in the car. This is amazing. And you've elected guys like Scotty, you're electing county commissioners, elected officials that are reflecting those Republican values. And it's not because folks in Marshall County suddenly became conservative. They were always conservative. As you know, your Democrat friends, they were always conservative. They were just voting what great-granddaddy was rather than what they thought. And we finally got to the point where the gun-owning, God-fearing, man and woman marrying, unborn baby-loving, Bible-thumping Christians started voting what they think instead of what their great-granddaddy was. And that's what's turning counties like Marshall County. That's what's going to continue to turn it. And again, starting to elect folks to the county commission, to the sheriff's office, and that's where you turn a county. And you all are right there. And I commend you on what you're doing there. Let me talk just a moment on national politics. It's been an illustrating and educating week. I mean, we learned farm policy from Mike Bloomberg this week. Found out you just throw a seed in the ground, throw some dirt, water on top of it, up comes corn. I need to tell Mike you got to actually put a corn seed in the ground to have corn come up, but he still thinks you get chocolate milk at the grocery store from brown cows. So that's what on that side. Bernie Sanders didn't make any particularly glaring bad mistakes this week, but only because he set the bar so low. Joe Biden still doesn't know where he is. He's traveling state to state. He needs one of those devices in his car that he just takes with him that tells him, well, roughly where he is. One of those GPS devices. And then Donald Trump. Who would have thought 3 years ago that this guy could just say something rather innocuous, just do a tweet and drive the entire Democratic media nuts? He buzzes the Daytona 500, which made my heart notice nobody was kneeling there during the day. Might get run over. And then he takes the track with the beast. Man, I got to tell you, I had goosebumps. And I don't know if you saw much in the media, but a friend of mine called Darrell Waltrip, because this is the first time he hadn't been doing the play-by-play for the Daytona, and said, would you be interested in going with Trump to the Daytona 500 if we can make it possible? He said, who is this and who are you trying to, what kind of scam is this? You didn't believe my friend. And so, they talked. He said, well, of course. He said, could you be at Mar-a-Lago at 10 a.m. Saturday morning? He goes, I'll hitchhike there now if I have to. So, you know, they talked to Trump, and Trump said, of course. So he literally got to Mar-a-Lago, and he flew on Air Force One up to Daytona and got to be part of the motorcade. So Tennessee was there. And then the fact that he can just continually troll people beyond any understanding. We had Obama this week also come out and take credit for the Trump economy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Trump economy, all the Democrats running for president say it's so awful, it's horrible, people can't work, they can't live, they can't survive. I did that, I built that. You know, it doesn't fit. But none of what they're saying really fits. I will say that we have designed a t-shirt for Tennessee, and we're letting some of the county organizations sell them. But they're $25, and what we're doing is a deal with the county groups is $10 stay in the county with the Republican Party. We want to make sure we're helping it, and then it's actually part of a 501c4, a nonprofit that we are using to help turn out Christian evangelical voters around the country. So 15 goes to pay for the shirts and goes to fund that. 3 years ago, we had 3 wrapped buses, big, you know, country music buses that we rolled out with teams, one in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, one in Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and then one out in Colorado, Nevada. And over 6 weeks, we generated over 100,000 Facebook likes. We found a 12-year-old that knew how to do Facebook. And it's not we had over 1 million folks that were going on the website, and it really helped make the difference in those very close calls of the Ohio, the Pennsylvania, and those states, and we're going to be doing that again this year. It was funny, we were at a gun show in Colorado handing out our materials, and we were a 501c4, which means you can't actively promote politics. So we didn't tell people vote for President Trump. We were telling them to pray, discern, and vote. And the issues were the Supreme Court, which meant Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. We get another 2 of those, and we're off to the races. We told them that, you know, vote for life, vote for religious liberty, but basically pray, discern, and vote. Now, all those issues did kind of fit the right guy. We weren't telling people to vote for President Trump. So we were at a gun show in Denver, Colorado, handing out materials, and never forget this veteran comes up with his veteran hat on. He goes, well, who are you for? I said, well, you know, we really can't tell people who to vote for because of the legal restrictions. He goes, well, if you won't tell people who to vote for, what good are you? I said, dude, we're at a gun show. So we know what we're doing by where we're going. The proceeds from this shirt help us do that. And God had his hand on that election. God has his hand on our country. God certainly had his hand on our Lift the Vote efforts. We did a prayer meeting the night before that last debate in Las Vegas, and we were in a community in Las Vegas that had the highest crime rate. It was one of the most dangerous communities in Vegas and had never had a church. And the pastor had planted a church in a little strip shopping center, and literally you looked out the front door and there was a liquor store. The night before we did our prayer rally in that parking lot, there was a murder on the street as a drug crime, guns started flying, and we come pulling in there to have our prayer rally the night before that event. And I got to tell you, my attitude was, okay, guys, we've got people who've donated a lot of money to help us turn out votes. This probably isn't really fitting our mission very well, but let's do it. And it was great. There were probably 150 people in this little parking lot praying and crying. There were drug dealers and not so former drug dealers. There were prostitutes and not so former prostitutes and gangbangers there, and church folks who'd come from the suburbs who were there to support that little church and that event. And it was great. I mean, you could feel God's presence on that event. But we finished. I said, okay, now let's get back to getting votes, because that's kind of what we're really doing. That's why people have donated all this money. We're literally driving out of the parking lot. I get a call from our information technology guy who goes, what were y'all doing tonight? I said, we were doing this prayer rally in Vegas. He goes, there were 500,000 people watching live stream on the internet. I go, okay, guys, you know what you're doing. Okay, what do you want us to do next? Because we're going to go do something else that doesn't fit our mission, because you're driving this, and God did drive that, and is still driving that. So while we hear the consternation and the wacky doodle stuff that's coming from the left and from the media, as if there's a distinction, and the Democrats, God's got this. I'm one of those folks, I like to read the back of the book.
Right.
We got this.
Yeah.
So the Democrats in Tennessee are as wackadoodle as the folks in Washington. Josh was talking about some of the just crazy stuff that they come up with. Here in Tennessee, we've got 2 Democrat legislators who've come up with a bill that they just filed this week to decriminalize urinating and pooping on the streets. Because we're just not California enough. They want to make it not a crime that would cause you to be suffering serious penalty to literally poop and urinate on the streets of Tennessee. That's their future for our state. And it matters who wins, it matters who wins county commission races, local races, it matters who wins your state legislative races. Look at Virginia. Democrats took control and they're trying to take guns. They're being unabashed about it. Fortunately, you had 4 Democrats just reject their willingness to ban assault weapons, which they still can't define. It matters who leads. And it also matters, as you were pointing out, getting Republicans that are conservatives, that aren't rhinos, getting conservatives that say it and mean it, get conservatives that don't just say it at election time, but then stick to it when they're in. And we've got a big problem with that in the Tennessee State Legislature. We've got supermajorities in the State House and the State Senate here in Tennessee. Supermajorities. We can't pass a heartbeat bill. We can't push back against red flag laws. We can't get votes from people who put an R next to their name during election time and then walk away from it as soon as they get over to Capitol Hill and start playing with the lobbyists and the big money folks. And it's up to us to hold them accountable. It's up to us to hold their feet to the fire and elect folks that we know are going to go do what they say they're going to do when they get there. Folks we know that are our neighbors, that we've seen what they do and what they say, not who just talk about it at election time. So it comes down again to us, to what we do in these elections. I'm going to tell you just about 2 quick legislative issues that have caught my attention most recently. I'm going to read you this this bill that the 2 legislators, a senator and a representative, put forward. It's Senate Bill 1429, House Bill 1290. Don't bother with the numbers, they don't really matter. But this is the caption. What they do up there, this is the slick game that our people are doing. Republican supermajorities are doing. Senate Bill 1429 reads, as introduced, requires the Department of Environment and Conservation to make available on its website for public viewing a sample solar easement instrument prepared by the Department of the Office of Energy Programs. They then did a fiscal note and found it didn't really have any cost to it. It's this solar easement bill. Now you may think to yourself, okay, Steve, why is that bothering you? Because the bill that actually is the language under that caption that it says it is has nothing to do with solar easements. Not a thing. It is totally their bait and switch crap that they pull up there all the time. What this bill actually does is say that if you've got a homeowners association and you've got certain rules and regulations and they tie to the land, they're part of your deed, they're part of your easement, that if the legislature passes this, what this bill does is say, I'm sorry, those restrictions do not apply. Anybody has a vested right, a legal right to rent their property, and they've redefined in this bill long-term rentals from a year or more to 6 months. The original bill before they amended was 30 days. That was long-term, and they did it under a solar easement piece. And here's what's interesting is that in North Carolina, the same bill under the same solar easement caption was being pushed over in North Carolina, and they said no, but in Tennessee it's moving ahead. Now what does this mean? If you live in a planned unit community, if you have a house in a neighborhood where you've got a homeowners association that says, you can't park an RV in your front yard, you can't put tires, car up on block and leave it out there in your front yard, that those are restrictions that the homeowners have voted on in their community, that doesn't matter, that they're going to overturn that and be able to say, nope, anybody can come rent for 30 days, 6 months, or whatever. Now up in Spring Hill, Tennessee, you see neighborhoods that have been bought out by these big real estate investment trusts, these Wall Street groups that are coming in, buying entire neighborhoods and turning them to rentals. Anybody at Christmas watch It's a Wonderful Life? That's what Potter was doing. He was turning Pottersville by buying up neighborhoods, turning them to rentals, and turning them into slums. That's what these out-of-state Wall Street groups are doing. They're the ones that are pushing this legislation. And after they pass about a 35% of your neighborhood or condominium or whatever association you may have, according to the federal regulations, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you can't get a home mortgage. So if you're in one of those neighborhoods and they buy up a big portion of it, and all of a sudden this legislation goes through and they can You can rent at your leisure. If you have a higher percentage of rental units in a neighborhood, you can't get an FHA loan, you can't get a VA loan, you can't get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan. So you may have a house, you won't be able to sell it because the person buying it won't be able to get a mortgage. You know who'll be able to buy it? The big Hollywood, out-of-state Wall Street REITs who are coming in with cash. Now, one of the legislators has been saying, well, this is to protect you because your homeowners can ban guns. Your homeowners association can ban guns. No, we do still have the Second Amendment. The HOA can't ban guns. You know who can ban guns? A landlord. So these out-of-state Wall Street types that buy up a neighborhood, then they can say you can't have a gun in the house you're in. So if you want to protect gun rights, you ought to pay attention to this. If you'd like to be able to sell your house, you ought to pay attention to this, and you ought to call Representative Tillis and make sure he's aware of this, because most of these legislators say, well, what are you talking about? It's just to protect people who are renting a home. And it completely undercuts all the homeowners documents that people have relied on, that are part of when you buy a home, they're part of your deed. It's unconstitutional, and we'll see if the Attorney General will follow the law or follow the lead of the big Wall Street money that's pouring in and buying a neighborhood. So that's one to watch and pay some attention to. The other one is this refugee resettlement business. And I gotta tell you, I'm so proud of communities and counties across the state who've been stepping up and saying no to Governor Lee as he's wanting to, push through this. Let's bring all these refugees who are unvetted. We don't know who they are. God bless them. I'm compassionate for them. As Christians, we should have a heart for them. But we might ought to know who they are. There was a case down in Atlanta just the other day, an illegal immigrant was teaching in Atlanta public schools and has just been charged and arrested for having an inappropriate sexual relationship with a student. I'm concerned about that, but I'm also concerned with how did an illegal alien get a job teaching in Atlanta? Because they're not vetting these people. What they have on the license, what they have in their documents are not true and are not valid. And Governor Lee is willing to take something like 1,500 of these adult male of military age, we don't know who they are, from Australia into our state. And we don't even know who these people are. We do know that Australia doesn't want them because they're not confident that they're not terrorists in waiting. These people that are coming from Syria and these third world Middle Eastern countries, they don't have a database of who these people are. And we're just having to take their word when they say, no, I'm 16 and I'm a good guy. There's no basis for that. And just like we're being told, unfortunately, by Governor Lee and his administration, that these are families, they're women with children. Same thing we were hearing when those caravans were coming up from Mexico, Honduras, and South and Central America, and yet you looked at the pictures, and they were all military-age males. Or they were carrying kids with them that weren't their kids. They were doing DNA tests. They weren't their kids. They were just, the circle, revolving door of getting people in who we don't know who they are. And I don't want to be unchristian, although sometimes it may sound like it, but I don't think that the governor and his wife Maria are taking a boatload of these people into the mansion or into their farm out in Williamson County. You start putting people we don't know who they are, you start letting them babysit your kids and grandkids, and then maybe I'll start buying your story that you don't have a problem with these people. But as long as we have people coming in, we don't know who they are, that you don't want in your house, don't tell them to put them in my house, my state, my community. And hopefully folks here in Marshall County will change. One other issue to watch. There's legislation that Representative Griffey in West Tennessee is putting forward to require that an athlete competing in athletics as a boy or a girl has to actually be a boy or a girl. This isn't complicated. Look down. It shouldn't be a complicated measure. We've had a problem enough of the restrooms, and unfortunately, again, Governor Lee would not take a position on the transgender restrooms. Inexplicably did not want to take a position on that. Well, now you have another bite of the apple, where women athletes in particular, are being forced to compete against guys. It is not right, it's not biological, it's not fair, it violates all aspects of common sense. And you've got these out-of-state groups from LA and New York saying, well, if you do that, we'll stop coming to Tennessee. It's like, oh, please. Please. We'll pass it tomorrow if you'll keep your word. These are the same folks that said they were going to leave the country if Trump got elected, and they're still here. And have you noticed that all the folks who threatened to leave the country all threatened to go to Canada? I don't want to go south where there are brown and black people. Talk about racism. You know, oh, I'm going to Canada if he gets elected. Well, you're complaining that he's a racist, and yet you're not the one wanting to move to Mexico, Honduras, or Venezuela, where your ideological perspectives are being met. This bill, the governor ought to be supporting it. He's slow walking it. He's hiding in the weeds on it. And again, you need to push your legislators to push this through. Now, I'll tell you, after I finished playing for Coach Mears and for the men's team, I was a graduate assistant when I was at law school for Pat Summit. And I tell people, thank God I played for the men's team, because I was not man enough to play for Pat. It was hard enough to coach for Pat. And I think some of those girls could go toe-to-toe with any guy you want to put them up to. The first time I got a forearm shiver in my throat posting up one of those young ladies, I realized, okay, they ain't playing. There are women who can compete, but there is a reason that you have women's sports and men's sports.
Right.
There's a biological difference, and you shouldn't take away the advantage that we have created for women to compete in sports, for women to grow in the ability to compete all week with somebody and then be a teammate on game day. That is a vital lesson, and it's been helpful to women like crazy over the last 20 years when we've changed our perspective. We are going to we're going to eliminate women's sports if we continue this business of, you know, hey, I'd like to play women's volleyball. You know, I might be great at it, but that doesn't make me a women's volleyball player. So we've got to have our legislators step up and do the right thing. Just some basic common sense. This is not hard stuff. And hopefully we can put pressure on folks like Representative Tillis and I'm not sure which is the state senator who represents.
Shane Reeves.
Shane. Yeah, call over to Murfreesboro, because I know the Murfreesboro schools are concerned about this as well. But those are just three of the kind of the ones that are coming on, not getting a lot of the media attention. The heartbeat bill, again, is going to come back again. It's been really watered down. It's not nearly as protective of unborn rights as it should be. Basically, you still have pretty much free reign as long as you can fit one of the loopholes to terminate births, you know, late in the stage, third trimester, even up until the day of birth. And I'll have to admit, some of y'all may remember, you know, Dennis actually has some pictures of when I was working with G-Board and Liddy, and he used to come to town, and I know Scotty was around when I was running. I was pro-life, still am. But I was pro-life from the head up, because it's what the Bible says, it's what God teaches, it's what we should believe. You know, you shouldn't kill babies. I have two young sons. They're now not quite as young. They're 27 and 24. The baby's 6'4", 205 pounds. So, you know, I don't know where they got that from. But after they were born, and they were both born 7 weeks early, and I was in the ICU, and I'm seeing babies that are much, much earlier than them that have come out of the womb, that are smaller, that are fighting for life with every breath they take. I became pro-life in my heart as well. And I encourage folks that may just think, well, it's just a political issue. Go down to the NICU at Vanderbilt University and look at some of these little tiny babies that are literally fighting, struggling with every breath to fight for their life, and ask, why aren't we fighting? I'll answer some questions if y'all have some. Thank you. Yeah.
Another question. I have twin nephews that spent the first 3 months of their life getting to the 9-month term at Vanderbilt's NICU. They're still alive. They're graduating high school. They only had a 6% chance of life. They were 1 pound 7 ounces, 1 pound 6. I've actually found out there's another child that beat that record. He was 9 ounces.
I encourage you to take them down there, because we did that with our boys, because the doctor friend suggested we do, because it's good for them to see their success. Yes, Guy?
Part about Ricky Gill. Everyone, I ain't gonna say the rep's name, he brings up religion and says, well, it's a godly thing to help refugees, that we're supposed to. God also has a gate and he has laws that everybody's not gonna read.
Right.
Bottom line, you know, when you start telling me, you know, you gotta start using some common sense. You know, no, I mean, everybody says that, let them live in their house, and I'm not letting anybody come in my house. In fact, I yelled at the telephone guy yesterday, he was knocking on the door and couldn't see him. I mean, he wasn't welcome to my house, I know he was. I ain't gonna let him come in there and they started in my refrigerator. And it's not being ungodly. You know, you pray, you do what's right, you know, but there are gates and there are walls in heaven, and every time somebody says that, you bring that up to our legislators. Sorry, I just wanted to that really bothers me. Yeah. You're not a Christian because, you know, you can't follow part of the Bible.
I don't want half my relatives at my house because I know them.
He's
refugees that are coming, supposedly coming to Tennessee, regardless of what foreign country they're from, I might be wrong. State taxpayer money and federal taxpayer money is going to provide them with a place to live. It's going to provide them with food stamps. It's going to provide them a supplement of money until they supposedly get a job or learn a skill. Am I right on that?
Yeah, and Catholic Charities is basically who they're funneling our tax dollars.
Okay, but here's my question.
Who knows what the overhead, who knows what's happening to the money?
But here's my question on it. How many of them are supposed to be coming here?
If we say no, the governor's saying, yeah, but they can come to Arkansas and they're still gonna gravitate here because everybody's moving here. It's like, well, if we take the 1,800, are we gonna build a wall against Tennessee and not get the 1,800 that also come in from Arkansas, these other places? Right. Their story does not add up. It doesn't make sense. And the best way you tell somebody who's not telling you the truth is when their story seems a little sketchy. Yes, sir.
He mentioned California. How many people have been here in San Francisco or LA in the last 10 years?
None.
One, two.
I called Cole.
Well, you don't want to go.
You don't want to go.
One of my friends said today he'd rather lick a doorknob in Wuhan. I'll stick around if you have any other questions. And thank y'all.
One more if you don't mind. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ken.
Yeah, if you got one.
Yes, Ken Tyson. You answered somewhat the one question I had two. What does Governor Lee, what's his justification for, and you mentioned people coming in from other states that kind of would protect him. My second one was this Real ID, the star. That's pretty good vending. Why don't we use that for voting?
Amen.
We can't even, you've got Democrats that don't want to use any ID.
A letter from my mom, everything to go in there. Yeah. It's one way we can avoid voter fraud.
Well, in New York, they're actually
beat us is voter fraud.
That's right. They're giving licenses to illegals in New York.
Right. Oh, sure.
And the Trump administration's trying to figure out how they can tell the FAA, don't let these people on planes, because anybody from New York has to be suspect if they're giving driver's license out like Halloween candy. So I will say that the star ID here is a good start. If they'll just add some people that we can get through without having to wait 5 hours and have to call.
Well, why don't they put voting in with that too, besides getting on an airplane and going to their site? It's.
Yeah, I have to show an ID to go buy cold medicine or go to a movie, but I don't have to show it to go vote. And again, we have a super majority of Republicans in the state house and state senate. Why haven't we passed Tennessee voter ID? Again, we got the votes. We just don't have the courage.
It is.
I agree with you very much.
Steve, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, the library closes at 8, and so we are going to wrap up here, and then definitely ask your questions, but be aware that it's lights out and doors locked at 8 o'clock. So we will be having our memberships. If anyone needs to join a membership and get your name in the hat for the drawing, we have dinner tickets and of course hats and so forth. To wrap up, our next meeting is March 17th here at the Marshall County Library. Refreshments at 6:15 and our meeting at 6:30. Doug Meyer, who's running against in the primary against Scott Desjardins, will be one of our speakers. The Murray County Republicans are having a special meeting this month with Dr. Ming Wang, who is their speaker. If you go on their Facebook page, it's on the 24th, this Monday, and he gives an excellent talk about communism and his accomplishments since he immigrated here. If you have not signed up for your, I just said that, sorry. Early voting has begun, remember, and Vince, you have something? Oh, I thought we were... No, not officially. No, thank you for the reminder because I often forget things. So yes, so definitely meet with our speakers, and for those of you who are new, we welcome you, and we are a conservative group in case you have not heard. And also you can come up here and see the kind of things that we do throughout the year. And if there's no further business, the meeting is adjourned, and we're glad you all came out tonight. Thank you.
Where you want to go? McDonald's? What about fish? Oh, yeah, absolutely.